Hello. So, yeah, I guess I came a bit late, but I'll get started. So, Kakarot is a ZK VM written in Cairo, and it's actually a project where we started last year, um, from around this time of the year. So first of all, what is a ZK EVM? Basically, a ZK EVM is a EVM that can be proved, and the idea of building a ZK EVM is that we can scale. Thank you. So in so everyone here must know Starknet by now. There have been great talks, and so if you ask like, okay, you're from Starknet, Starknet there is already have a ZK VM. Why would you build a ZK EVM in Cairo when there's already a ZK VM? So one of the main points of building a ZK EVM is that the EVM ecosystem is very thriving. So there's developers and there's communities building a lot of toolings, and even now there's a lot of new projects being born for both developers and users on top of EVM. And in Starknet, because it's a different language, a different structure, the development is a little bit slower. So, but there's a trade-off between a ZK VM and a ZK EVM is that the EVM was not done to be fast on ZK. So the trade-off is that we pay a little price on performance, but the positive side is that we benefit from the network effect from all the ecosystem that have been built since 2013 or 14. So just an overview of how Kakarot is. So Kakarot, the initial idea for Kakarot was to be a smart contract. The idea is that we would write the EVM in Cairo, and that can be deployed as a smart contract, or also it could also run off-chain. But our initial idea was, okay, we would build the Kakarot smart contract, the EVM smart contract, deploy on Starknet, and then you would be able to interact with Starknet using all the EVM tooling, and also interact between contracts, have interaction between contracts from Cairo contracts to EVM contracts. Everything on Starknet. So this is basically the structure. The EVM transaction comes, it goes to the Kakarot Cairo contract, which is interpreted, is proven by the Starknet OS, and then the state diff is pushed to L1. Right now we have a little different structure where we are also with the sequencers as Madara, Starkware sequencer, and even Lambda class sequencer. We have the ability to become an L2 or L3 or even an L4. So one of the biggest reasons why Kakarot was able to develop so fast is that thanks to the Starkware team, because when we started Kakarot, we didn't worry about ZK. We just focused on building the EVM using the Cairo language. That's the power of Cairo language. It abstracts a lot of the moon math aspect. Of course, we study, but right now we don't have any PhD in cryptography in our team. Right now we are relying mostly from what Starkware is building and benefiting from all the developments and the research they've been done for all this time. And a little bit about Kakarot history is that last year around this time, actually in October, there was a hackathon where 80 people from the Starknet community came together, and we stayed 1 week on IT Lisbon. And during that time, to prepare for the 80 hackers coming together, there was a list of projects where the community leaders would say, okay, like instead of just everyone coming and building their own project, like you have to propose a project and then and also you have to join one of the projects that were proposed. And Kakarot was one of those projects. So it was actually an idea from the Starknet exploration team, actually Abdel, and also a partnership with OnlyDoes, because it was initially Kakarot was incubated fully from open source and from grants. Just a little bit more of story. The EVM contract is different from the Kakarot contract address, or the Starknet contract address, or the Starknet address. And I remember that in the beginning we were in the hackathon, and our goal was like, okay, we have developed for 4 days, but our goal is to be able to deploy a simple counter contract, pure bytecode, but a simple counter contract. And we were working on implementing all the opcodes that we needed, and we had to do this conversion between Starknet address to EVM address, and then we added, okay, all the contracts on Kakarot will start with Abdel just because it was fun at the time. And the actual funny thing is that, okay, it's not like this anymore, but the actual funny thing is that during the hackathon, I think we had like 4 hours left, and we were debugging the contracts, and we had a bug where we couldn't figure out what it was. And then we were looking at the logs, and it's like, hey, wait a minute, like this contract is not starting with Abdel, what is happening? And then we were able to find the bug and actually fully deploy a counter contract for the hackathon. And now, what happened after the initial hackathon project is that Kakarot continued as an open source project until January this year, where we decided to incorporate. And it was basically Kakarot today is it's an emergence of the Starknet ecosystem. Everyone here this picture was taken in the beginning of the year, so now we have a lot more contributors, a lot of new contributors. But you can see, like we had a community of 30 active developers like contributing to one fully open source repository. Right now, Kakarot is incorporated, and we have now taking most of the core developments internally. We still have open source contributions, and since the incorporation, we were able to finalize the opcodes. We were able to implement the RPC, which is basically you have the Starknet sequencer, you have the Kakarot contract, and then you have the RPC, which will translate Ethereum API endpoints to Starknet API endpoints. And since July, since ETC, we have been testing our the Kakarot EVM with pre-alpha testers, and now we have 29, I think now it's around 40 or 50 developers already testing Kakarot. One of our goals, one of the things that we achieved, and one of our goals is to be able to integrate with all of the EVM toolings out of the box. And right now, we have successfully integrated with MetaMask, Remix, Foundry, Ether.js, and we plan on integrating with Hardhat, Vrim, Trufflebox, WogMe. And when I say out of the box, is basically if you have a Kakarot RPC that currently you need to run locally, you can just add it on the tools, just like any other RPC, and it will work. You will be deploying an EVM contract on Starknet. And it's a really interesting thing that's, like when we first got the transactions going, like on Remix, we were like, okay, the transaction just went on Remix, and then we will go to StarkScan to check the transaction. And like you're validating the transaction with MetaMask, but then you would have to go to StarkScan and other EVM toolings to verify, because in the end, everything is it was a Starknet transaction. So one of the things that we have been working on, now a little bit more than 3 weeks, this slide was not updated. A little bit for a month now, we have been migrating Cairo 0 to Cairo 1, because soon Cairo 0 will be deprecated. And we have been doing a lot of research on how to optimize. And you can check in our repo, Kakarot Super Saiyajin's discussions there are a few explorations that we've done before deciding which path to take. For example, we realized that in Cairo 1, now when you have a struct, the compiler automatically optimizes if you do a lot of struct changes. While in Cairo 0 before, you would have to copy everything in memory for every time you had to change. And there are also some other practices that you can check out the repo to see how you can implement in your own Cairo code base. This is some of the findings, which you can check on the repo. Right now, we have been focusing a lot on testing. Once the pre-alpha testers started to really test, we realized how, actually there's a lot of things, that was not checked before. And so the best thing for us was, okay, let's try to be compliant with the EF tests. Actually, we should have done this before, but we only realized about this 1 month ago. And now we are stress testing Kakarot, integrating with all the Ethereum Foundation's node tests, the Hive tests, so that we can be compliant with the test that was already generated by the community. Once again, here we are riding on the shoulder of like a lot of work that have been done previous to us. If we wanted to do all these tests ourselves or come up with all these tests ourselves, it would take a few months. But as the ecosystem is already big, like we can just, okay, there's so many tests already being implemented. We can just integrate it. Of course, there's some work we have to do to integrate with Starknet, and now we've been improving Kakarot pretty fast. So if you're interested in, if anyone here is a Cairo developer or wants to become a Cairo developer, you're more than welcome to contribute to our repo. We have many good first issues. This has been in our, I would say, culture or motto since the beginning. Every workshop or every hacker house that we go, we prepare good first issues for Cairo developers. So even if you never done Cairo, you can start contributing and learn Cairo through the process of contributing in open source. That's actually how I personally started learning Cairo, by contributing to Kakarot, and we try to keep this path open to any developer who wants to learn Cairo. So now the big question is, okay, when will you have Testnet and when you have Mainnet, and what could be the big differences from Kakarot to other ZK VMs, right? We expect to have Testnet on this quarter, hopefully, and Mainnet in the next year on Q2 or Q3. One of the things that we are expecting to have, and some of the changes that might happen as we go, is that right now there is a Lambda class is developing Cairo native, which technically would allow Kakarot, the Kakarot ZK VM to run in LLVM. And that would, it would not be provable, but we could parallelize the proving, and we could potentially become as fast or not, or even faster than even optimistic rollups. So yes, thank you for your time. And if you want to follow us, here is our X, not Twitter anymore, and our Telegram.